Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign.
This is session 58 of Starship Vigilant, and this is Bacchus Irresistible Call, Part 1. Now, here's where things are going to get a little bit weird for you folks. So, what we are doing, the first thing we are going to do is this session and the next probably few sessions are set approximately 100 years in the past from where we are with the campaign with Starship Vigilant. So, the first thing to be aware of is you are all going to be playing new characters on a different ship around about the time of the original series. So, for those of you who hopefully you're all at least vaguely familiar with the original series, this is the time of Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
just to make... Sorry?
Just to confirm, I'm trying to load up my player sheet. I don't think we ever came up with a finalised name, did we? So
you're not going to need... You are not going to need that because you are not playing that character tonight, and you will not be playing that character for the next few sessions. And to make things even more interesting, we are not even using the same system that we've been using for the last few years. We are playing these next few sessions using the original Star Trek the role-playing game by FASA, which was originally published in 1982. And so for the next few sessions, we are changing tracks absolutely entirely. So I'll let that sink in for a minute. As you can see from the artwork on the cover page of the game, we are taking our lead from the original series, and that image is a bit of a cobbled together thing from the Star Trek animated series. So the first thing to be aware of is you are all going to be playing different characters, and you are not on the Vigilant. You are going to be playing the crew of the USS Lexington. And the USS Lexington is a Constitution-class starship, the same as the original Enterprise. And it is one of the original 13 starships that were launched. And so, as I say, that is the ship to which you are assigned, and the year is now 2269. So our normal campaign takes place currently it's 2372. So you're just over 100 years prior to the events of that game. Now, the next fun thing we're going to do is we're going to get you to randomly pick characters, because I have created characters for you for this system. However, I have not allocated them, so I'm going to give you the opportunity just to randomly roll them. So I'm going to start with Alex. Can you on the dice roller, can you please roll me just a single D6?
Do I have to load up my CBC character?
No, just type.
Don't worry about that, because once I know which character you're playing, I'm going to load a new character sheet for you. But I can't do that until I know who you're going to be playing. So
Alex,
all I need you to do right now is roll me a D6.
Type / roll.
Yeah.
Space.
Yeah.
1d6.
There you go.
Oh, I spelled it wrong.
It helps if you spell it right.
Alex, for ease, if you go all the way to the left of your screen, there's a little dice icon.
So there is.
And that's got... You can click on that, and it brings up all different dice, and you can just click on one of those.
Yeah, that's cool. I've got the character for you. So, Alex, you are playing Kamal Jitan, and he is basically the chief medical officer.
Oh, right? Jesus!
So, give us a second, and I will once everybody's allocated a character, then I'm going to then I'll allocate you out your character sheets, because, like I said, there's a little bit of admin to do. Because I wanted to spring this on you as a bit of a surprise.
You've succeeded in doing that.
Yeah, right. So, Kerrin, why don't you go next for me, please? So again, just roll a D6. All right. Kerrin, you are playing Captain Carol Moore.
Ooh.
So you are playing the captain of the USS Lexington.
Okay, doke.
So I will tell you more in a minute. As I say, don't worry about it at the moment. For now, I just want to get everyone's character sheet. Right, Mike, you're next, please.
I guess I'm not. Can I play her from the alternate universe, a mirror universe?
No, shut up. Just roll the dice.
Can I have a goatee? Oh no,
It really wants
Right.
you to play the captain.
it does, doesn't it? Steve, have you fixed this?
No, not at all. No, I'm literally I've got the sheets in front of me, and I'm just getting you to roll dice.
Right.
Right, Mike, you are playing. Mike, you are playing Raphael Huerta, who is the Chief Security Officer.
Okay.
All right. So that's you. Right. So next we'll get Sarah Jane to roll.
Okay, hang on a second. Try and click on that.
So just roll a d6 for me.
Let's do it again.
Okay, no, it's the 4. Okay. So you are playing Commander Waldemar Reiter, who is the Chief Helmsman of the USS Lexington. Okay. And then Kevin, you've got a choice of 2, so give me a d6 and I'll just split it down the middle.
I've left it on the drawer behind you.
Don't start that again. Don't you start going on about balloon arches.
I've completely forgot your house number. Otherwise, I was going to take a Google Maps picture and send it to you.
Yeah, I bet you.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put it past you. Right. Okay. So you are playing Lieutenant Commander Varette, who is who's the chief engineer.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then the other main character is Chief Science Officer to Pren, who I will use as an NPC. So what I'm going to do first of all is just give me a second. I am going to change over your image so that you can see the characters that you are playing. So just bear with me 1 second. Remember to drag this stuff across. There we go. Right, if you just hopefully the image should change and you should now see a cast of characters appearing. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so Karen, you are playing Captain Carol Moore, who's top left.
Yep.
And then Sarah Jane is playing Voldemort Reiter, who's middle.
Okay.
And then Mike, you are playing Raphael Huerta, who is the third.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant to Pren is an NPC. Kevin, you're playing Lieutenant Commander Varette, who's the Andorian chief engineer. And then Alex, you're playing Lieutenant Commander Kamal Jatan, who's the Chief Medical Officer. Okay, so those are the characters that you are playing. You'll note that they're all in the snazzy original series uniforms. So now I've just got the fun of trying to get character sheets sorted out for you. So if you just bear with me for 1 moment. So Captain Carol Moore first of all. So Karen, what I'm going to do is put it into your journal.
Okay.
And then hopefully in a moment you should see this should appear. If you like, you might need to refresh it, but hopefully you'll see. And this is basically a PDF. This is not an interactive character sheet, to be clear. Okay. So it's not something with dice rolling. The dice rolling in this system is all D100s. So there's no need to worry about dice rollers. It's all done through the dice rolling app. Okay. Karen, can you see that character sheet now?
I can, yep.
Right. So I'll give you obviously as you see these appear in your journals, people, just have a little look and I'll go through the basics of the system very briefly. It's very simple.
Hold on, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mine hasn't appeared in my journal yet.
Yeah, you might need to just refresh it, Alex, possibly.
Waldemar and Carol Moore as well.
So,
Evan, yes,
Steve,
Karen.
mine says something went wrong. Please check your permissions or reload. Let me reload.
If it doesn't work, let me know, and then I'll bump it over to you. Mike, I'm just doing yours now.
Yep.
Not showing up. I've just refreshed.
It's okay. Give it a sec. Like I say, it's not the quick. Roll20 is not the best. And as I say, all you're looking at is a PDF. It's not a So this is not a interactive sheet. It's just literally it's a PDF.
So oddly, I can see the little thumbnail of it, but it's not
centered.
Hold on. I'm going to jump out of Roll20 and I'll jump back in.
Can any of you actually see the character sheets, or are they
Yes,
all
I
having
can.
problems?
Oh, I can. What it is part of the screen isn't big enough, or at least my screen wasn't big enough to show the entire character sheet.
Yeah.
That might be your problem, Kevin.
No, I used the little hand cursor to move around on it, and it says it's got like a error warning on it.
That's okay. Like I say, to be honest, I fully expected we'd probably have a few issues because I couldn't really set this up in advance because obviously I didn't know who was playing what. And the FASA character sheet that's built into this platform is not that great. So
The window doesn't pop out.
what's that?
The window doesn't pop
come
out.
No, it's weird because it's just a PDF. But
Fine.
like I say, are you seeing it at all or not?
Yeah,
So when I first click on it, Steve,
Yeah.
it sort of flashes up so I can see that it's there, and then all of a sudden it jumps to something went wrong.
Okay, what I'll do then is if you bear with me, I can probably just send these to you in the
Yeah, if you message me and I'll have it on my phone and stuff.
I'll just WhatsApp you with it. So bear with me a second. Because to be honest, again, the good thing is that doesn't matter because you don't need.
Yeah.
You're not going to be doing any dice rolling through the sheet. It's all done. We're just doing it through the normal dice roller.
Yeah.
Because again, this is an old, very, very, very old system.
Steve, character sheets. Could you just not post them up onto Discord?
I'm not sure. I'll try doing a Discord upload. So just give me a second.
You won't get the die roller, but
well, no, there's no die roller. That's what I'm trying to say.
exactly,
These are just literally just PDFs. There's no dice. There's no die roller involved in this at all. Let me just try and add. I'll try and add one of the sheets in, see whether Karen can get to it, and then if that works, I'll upload all of them.
Also, Steve, if you could just double check the permissions for me on it, because it says something went wrong. Please check your permissions or reload, and I've reloaded and it's not helped. So it might be permissions.
Sure. Okay, give me a sec, and I will do that for you.
Because obviously the problem is the character sheet won't pop out of the window, and it blocks.
No, that's right. Because it is. To be fair, it is just PDF. So it's, as I say, it should appear as a. I take that.
There's no ability to maximise it either.
Try that, Karen, because it came up and it said it was in all players' journals, and I've just taken it out of all players and put it into yours.
Okay, let me refresh.
If that's any better. If not, I'll upload the character sheet.
Nope.
Still no good?
No, still no good.
Okay, don't worry then. Bear with me.
As I said, when I first click on it, it flashes up and I can see that it's there, and then it just.
That's not a problem. I'm just popping it into the. I'm popping it into the Discord. So if you bear with me, I'll do the same for everybody. So then, if you just click on it on your device and just open it up as a PDF.
Yeah, lovely.
That will work fine, and then we'll just go because again, like I say, it's not important whether you have. All you need to be able to do is just see the sheet really. Right, Carol Moore, 10. Marot. Load file. Baltimore Wrighton.
Thank you.
And of course, there's one that's not in there, which would be Mike, which I did see here. There we go.
Right, okay. So I've got my note.
Right, hopefully now, if you go into the Discord, you should just see there's pop-ups, the PDFs there. So if you can just open them up in a browser window, or just open them up in your Acrobat Reader. That'll do.
I know it's really nerdy, but am I the only one here who uses Opera GX?
Who? What? Sorry.
Am I the only one here who uses Opera GX?
Yes.
I used to use Opera when it was like version 2 or 3, but it wasn't as good as Firefox at the time because Firefox enabled multiple tabs, whereas Opera, the first or second version, the tabs weren't at the top. They all kept the windows, all new windows within a window. It was not as, and it was red, wasn't it? Opera? Big O.
Yeah, I just tend to use Chrome because it remembers everything for me. So
this is Opera GX though. It's like the gamer version. It has like built-in ad blockers and stuff.
Oh,
cool. I might check that out. I haven't even looked at Opera for so long.
Yes, Opera GX. It's got 3 ad blockers, 3 VPN. It's really good.
I've never used the I don't use the Apple browser either, though. I don't really use Safari, which is the Apple one. But right, anyway, has everyone got their character sheet now? Has everyone got something they can see? Okay, so let me explain a little bit about how this system works. It's very simple. So at the top of the sheet, you've got your character's name, age, rank, etc., all that stuff. To the top right, you've got a number called AP. So the AP number is what is called action points. So basically, if we get into a situation where there is any sort of like man-to-man combat, then this game uses a system called action points, and basically you spend action points to be able to do things. So you're on a grid, and if you want to move a square, it costs you 1 action point. I've got a sheet which I will show you if we need it, which gives you a whole list of all the things you can do. But that's what AP means. Okay, so then you've got your attributes. So you can see you've got strength, endurance, intelligence, dex, charisma, luck, and psionic, which is, to anyone who's played D&D, is all sort of very familiar type of attributes, and they're all percentile. So this system is what we call a percentile system. So what it means is, generally, if you're making a dice roll, you're going to be rolling a D100, so a percentile dice. And if you're trying to do something, you're trying to roll underneath your number. So if I was going to get you to make a strength roll, for example, so Captain Carol Moore's got a strength of 52. So if I was going to say to her, right, you're trying to open a locked door, you're going to try and use brute strength, then it would be a case of rolling a D100, and if you roll under 52, you succeed, and if you roll over, you don't. There's no hero point mechanic in this system. There's no momentum. There's none of that stuff. It's basically I apply modifiers if they're appropriate, but it's definitely an old school system. There are a whole load of numbers under that, enact, save, and unk, thresh, and all this stuff. They're all to do with hit points, basically. So you have an endurance score, which is basically your hit points, and if you take damage, obviously that number will go down. If you get to 20, then you have to make an inaction save, which means if you fail that, basically you kind of are out of action for a bit. An unconscious threshold means if you reach 5 endurance, then you're unconscious. There's a to hit modern numbers. That's if you're going to be firing with a modern weapon like a FASA, then you have a score which is your to hit number. You have a hand-to-hand to hit number as well. So if you're in hand-to-hand combat, that's the number you roll. And then you have a bare hand damage value. So if you do hit somebody without a weapon, that's the amount of damage that you do to them with your bare hands. So underneath that, you've got your service experience table, and that just is that's not really relevant to this, but this is just part of the FASA system where it shows you your character's career. So starting with Starfleet Academy, cadet crews, branch school, which is your kind of specialty, department head school if appropriate, command school, and then you have a number of tours of duty, which are in various commands within Starfleet. So Carol Moore has spent 8 years working in the Colonial Operations Command, and then 3 years at Starbase, and then a year in the Merchant Marine, and so on and so on. So that just gives you an idea of your character's kind of progression. And then you've got your skill list at the bottom, and the skill list is an alphabetical list of all of the skills. You will not necessarily have a value in all of those skills. And the way the skills work is, as I mentioned, it's a percentile system. Now, if you have a skill rating which is between 1 and 10, then that means that you have a basic familiarity with it. So normally what we do then is we just roll a D10, and you're trying to roll under that number to succeed. Basically, it's like a luck roll almost. With other skills where they're higher than that, so if you've got, so for example, she's got a skill of 45 in administration. So if you're trying to do something to do with administration, then you would roll percentile dice, and that's how it works. And it's all pretty straightforward. For those of you who've played Call of Cthulhu, then very similar mechanic to that, and it is all percentile dice. And but as with any of these games, you'll only be asked to roll if you need to. So if there's a chance of failure. But as I say, you don't need. There's no fancy character macros built into this. It's all just done through the basic dice roller. So does everyone seem okay with that?
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll get it as I go along.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. To be honest, it's more straightforward than than Star Trek Adventures, I would say. Although being old school, it doesn't have, as I say, it doesn't have the sort of storytelling mechanic that the new Star Trek Adventures has with momentum and so on. But this is definitely, this game's been around for a long time. Mike and I certainly have played this since about 1982, I think. Right, Mike? Is that
to death? Yeah.
sounds about right. So, and just to explain a little bit of my reasoning behind this, I'm sure at least one of you might be going, "What the hell is he doing?" So, I'm sure you probably asked that most weeks, but anyway, the reasoning behind this is just simply because the reason that we're going to play through these adventures is these adventures are the beginning adventures of the campaign. Now, in our current normal game, we are, I think, we're like in scenario 8 of 10, which is the kind of main plot of the campaign, and obviously most of that has taken place in the 24th century. And the reason we're doing this is because I thought it would be fun to get you to play through the other 2 adventures which take place prior to the events of the future, so that you would have a bit of a frame of reference to, so you could say that we've sort of played the whole campaign. But obviously that wasn't practical to get you to use the Vigilant characters. And then when I got thinking about that, I thought, well, why not go the whole hog and just throw you into the old FASA game? Because then that, definitely sets a different tone. So, obviously the character sheets look different, the characters are different, and the game system is different. So it kind of puts divides the 2 periods of play, hopefully, pretty definitively. So that's my kind of thinking. But other than that, we kind of know how this works. And as I say, if I need dice rolls, you can just use the dice roller built in. And I think we are good to go. So, okay, so it is 2269. Captain's log. We will arrive at the Bacchus system within the hour. Starfleet Command has ordered us there for 3 reasons. First, we are to track down 2 Starfleet officers who stole a shuttle and were last detected heading in this direction. No one is sure why they did it, but 2 people were killed, and so they must answer for their crimes. Next, reports from passing ships and nearby outposts speak of evidence that a Klingon vessel has violated the neutral zone and is heading towards the Bacchus system. We are to investigate to see if there is any truth to these reports. Finally, strange, indecipherable signals have been emanating from the Bacchus system for the past several weeks. The Lexington is to search for the source of these signals and try to determine their meaning, if any. So, you are all on the bridge of the USS Lexington. So the Lexington is a Constitution class starship, as I mentioned. So this is the same ship as the Enterprise from the original TV show. I will just click over to the map there. So hopefully there you can see the bridge of the USS Lexington. Basically, it's at a funny angle because that was always a thing. You'll notice the turbo lifts at the top. The turbo lift at the top there is basically at the back of the ship. And you can see that the bridge is like offset by a few degrees to the left. But the point is, all the familiar stuff is there. You've got the captain's chair, and I've sort of basically placed the markers pretty where you'd be sitting. So Captain Moore has the centre seat as the captain. Lieutenant Pren, who is a very well kept Vulcan science officer. She's she's operating efficiently as usual at the science station, looking into her hooded viewer. And Commander Jutan is also on the bridge. You tend to sit on the bridge at a spare station if you're not required in the medical section in sickbay. And we've got Commander Reiner is basically flying the ship, because you're as well as being the first officer, you're also the helmsman. And then we have Lieutenant Commander Verrett is at the engineering station there at the top of the bridge. And then finally we have Commander Huerta, who is the chief of security, is at the security monitoring station.
He likes to.
And this is. Say again.
I like to Huerta people. That's why I'm in security.
You like to Huerta people. Very good. So you are all on the bridge at your designated stations. And again, this is kind of how you normally operate. And I'm just going to flick you over. Just bear with. There we go. Can anyone see that?
Oh, it's animated.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realise this can do moving animations.
Yeah.
It's a GIF.
It's kind of a combination. It's a bit of a it's like multi-layer. So the artwork for the view screen is a piece with a cutout, and then the sort of hyperspace is basically a GIF, and then similarly with the moving lights at the bottom are part of it as well. So
It's not. It's all real.
sort of put them together
It's
as multiple layers. But yeah, it's fun, isn't it? I don't normally do this kind of stuff, but I thought it looked kind of fun for this.
Well, you've raised the bar now, Steve. So as a
We
bare
expect
minimum,
this always.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
was just saying what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So anyway, you're cruising along, and
Don't change the subject. Moving images next session.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got some commissions in. Okay, so basically, you are. So is everyone happy to be positioned on the bridge? Does anyone have anything else they want to be doing? So again, there's no background information. I haven't provided you with any background information for these characters. And you know, if you wish such information, I can. I'll supply it to you separately. But to be honest, you know, you are Starfleet officers, and you are members of the crew of the Lexington, and you have all been on the ship for some time. And as I say, the Lexington, this is a very different time in Starfleet history. This is when Starfleet is exploring. Again, the Lexington is one of the 13 starships which were launched along with the Enterprise. And in fact, the Lexington has just recovered from being involved in the M5 computer war games incident. So for those of you who don't know the original series episode, The Ultimate Computer, which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it.
Wonderful machine.
But this is
no off switch.
There we go. And this is the episode in which the Enterprise was fitted out with a experiment. It's basically a warning against the dangers of AI, pretty much, which is strangely appropriate because basically what happens is they fit the Enterprise with a computer system which can basically control a starship, and it goes nuts and it ends up attacking 4 other Federation starships. The USS Excalibur was pretty much destroyed outright, and its entire crew was killed. The USS Hood and Yorktown, I think, were both heavily damaged, suffering large number of crew casualties. And again, the Lexington was also very badly damaged and essentially has spent several months in space dock being refitted, and her crew has had to be refilled because, again, many of your shipmates, those of you, most of you have been on the ship at least for some time, and you all lost friends and shipmates in that incident. And this is the Lexington's first kind of tour back out into space, although you have been in space for several months. But again, so that is the history of the ship. Again, the Lexington has a proud history within Starfleet. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd ship to bear the name in Starfleet history.
Indeed.
And as I say, so you are basically the crew of one of the Federation's flagships, and you are pretty much the best of the best. Is all you really need to know. And as I say, if you want more information, when I get a minute, I will post up the bios for you to have a look at. But again, that's pretty much all you need to know at the moment.
Steve, could you let us know who out of the player characters are new to the Lexington? Then you said some of the crew had to be replaced. Are any of us new?
Sure. I'm going to go with. So I think. I'm going to just look top of my head. I'm going to say Jitan is relatively new. So Alex
isn't the captain?
Sorry,
isn't the captain new? Because wasn't that Stocker was the captain of the Lexington?
Yeah, if you bear with me a second, I think it was the Yorktown, but I'm just going to check.
Okay. If
you bear with me, I can. You know what? It's a good point. And again, I'm happy to take these slight diversions because, again, this was all part of my thought process. Was I knew that we would be kind of having to look at this stuff in slow time because, again, this is all new and it's good. I want you to get to know these characters because, again, you're going to be using these characters for a while. So just bear with me. So let me just tell you. I'll tell you exactly who is what. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I don't want to derail, but
No, you're not derailing at all.
That
And in
helps
fact, this is good.
with roleplay, doesn't it?
This is good because again, so what we'll do is we'll take a little diversion here, and I'm going to give you some information. So Captain Moore. So Captain Moore is a veteran officer, often referred to as Starfleet lifers. And in this case, Captain Moore's family has a long history of serving in Starfleet. And basically, Captain Moore was an engineer. You graduated from Starfleet Academy as an engineer, which was a bit of concern to your family because most of your family were on the command track, and you were one of the first in the Moore family to basically graduate focused on engineering rather than command. Although she did eventually show a great aptitude for both. You actually served time as chief engineer briefly on board the USS Enterprise under Captain Christopher Pike. So you spent some time on the Enterprise as captain of Pike. You then served on first officer and engineer aboard the USS Miranda. So the Miranda was basically is the ship that the USS Reliant is based on from Wrath of Khan, if you're familiar with that ship. And the Miranda encountered a spatial anomaly while on a survey mission near the Romulan border, and the ship was destroyed, and you were only one of 6 crew members to survive. You were in an escape pod for 3 weeks before you were rescued, and Moore received a commendation because you basically jury-rigged the escape pod's life support systems to keep the 6 people alive far longer than the escape pod was designed to do. And you are still somewhat haunted by the loss of the Miranda. Not that it was your fault, but this is your kind of, this still plays on your mind.
Yeah, traumatic.
So after a period of rehabilitation, after you were rescued, you were then promoted to captain, and you were given. So you are basically the first captain of the ship since the M5 incident. So you've been in command for about 2 years.
Okay.
As I say, the incident was in 2267 with the War Games incident. Okay, but as I say, so that's kind of the basics. And again, I will put all of this into your journals before the next session, so you can have a proper read. Right, Commander Writer. So Sarah Jane. So you grew up on the planet or on the colony of Antares, which is one of the furthest flung colonies in the Federation. You have a great love of the outdoors, and as well as a firm knowledge of survival techniques. You were a good athlete as a youngster and enjoyed free climbing and had a bit of a taste for adventure and wanderlust, which led you to Starfleet Academy. In fact, Antares is so far out from the Federation's core worlds that you actually spent the first semester of your academy instruction was done remotely. So you were basically studying remotely on the transport that you were on for about a year, heading back to Earth. But again, just to remember, everybody, this is 100 years prior to what you're used to, so travel times are would be longer.
Yeah.
The Federation seems a lot bigger, if you like, because everything travels at
one of the things about this era is that you're out on the edge. You're really out on the edge. It could take up to 3-4 weeks to get a communication,
exactly
get
right.
a communication. It's not like TNG where it's sort of like, oh yeah, we're out on the border. Oh, let's communicate with Earth. You are really on your own.
Exactly,
A bit like talking to Ticketmaster.
Exactly, yeah, that's right. It's exactly like talking to Ticketmaster.
I understand perfectly.
So anyway, so whilst you were on the transport, Writer spent a lot of time, had a lot of time to become familiar with shipboard systems and demonstrated an aptitude for piloting. So you transitioned. It was soon apparent that you were going to transition into the command division, focusing on helm, and you soon had a reputation as one of the finest helm operators in the fleet, leading to a career that alternates between helm assignments on various vessels and periods serving as an instructor at the academy. And you do sometimes find yourself in conflict with your 2 roles because you have a great love for piloting and for flying the ship, and you tend to fly. If you get the opportunity, you tend to be the one who flies the shuttlecraft because that's what you love. But you also have a real strong sense of responsibility to your crew. and you also enjoy your role as executive officer because you're the kind of liaison between the captain and the crew. So that's kind of where you're at. Okay. Right. So next up we have Lieutenant Commander Verrett. So Lieutenant Commander Verrett is a this is so unlike you, Kevin. Brash, aggressive, and outspoken, even by Andorian standards. But you are also a highly skilled engineer, and this has basically saved your career on more than one occasion. There have been times. Yeah. There have been times in the past when your insubordinate behaviour might have otherwise had you chucked out of Starfleet, but because you're such a good engineer, it's kind of kept you in there. Sorry, go on.
I said, really? And this was random.
Kevin,
totally random.
Kevin, we got to know the important stuff. What deck is the still on?
What deck is the still on?
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. Well, the Constitution class has got a few more decks, so there's probably a few more stills hidden around. Anyway, so in 2268, during a test of the M5 computer, the USS Enterprise, under control of the machine, used full-strength weapons in what was supposed to be a war game. So the computer executed relentless attacks on the Excalibur, the Hood. It was the Potemkin was the other ship, and the Lexington. And you were serving on the Lexington. The Excalibur was crippled with all hands lost, and the Lexington was critically damaged, suffering many casualties. So you were basically reassigned, and Captain Moore, when Captain Moore came on board, she discovered that basically you'd ignored many of the specifications from the Starfleet Corps of Engineers for various refits. And when you were called in front of the captain to explain, your answer was basically that my designs are better. So Captain Moore basically, she could have potentially had you thrown out of Starfleet, but what she did was she kept you on, got you to explain the improvements, and because of her engineering background, the two of you actually got on very well, spending long hours arguing over technical readouts and examining all the details of the new system. So once that particular meeting concluded, then Captain Moore ordered Verrett to continue as chief engineer on the project. And again, you've just recently been promoted to lieutenant commander, and you are now officially the chief engineer. Okay, so Commander Jitan. Commander Jitan, a brilliant doctor, renowned expert in disease and toxicology, and also a little bit of what might have at one time been called a hippie. You were raised in a family that travelled the Federation, never staying in one place for too long, and your parents believed that you would benefit from exposure from a wide range of cultures that the Federation has to offer. Your parents were a musician and an artist, and they basically earned their living bartering their talents for passage. And so you spent a lot of time in your youth travelling around the Federation with no sort of solid roots in place. And because of your parents' belief in the sanctity of life, this obviously led you to want to become a doctor. You joined Starfleet Medical, and you have been, there's been some conflict with your family because obviously Starfleet is a military organization, and there are times when Starfleet vessels are called upon to use force. And this initially caused some friction with your parents. However, they've softened their views over time. And although some of your siblings are still unhappy with the fact that you're essentially in the military, so that's a kind of a thing that you have ongoing in your background. But basically, you've enjoyed the opportunity to spend a lot of time conversing with people from other cultures. Obviously, these vessels, like the Lexington that you're serving on, they're kind of at the forefront of Federation exploration, and so you have opportunities to meet new life forms as well as encounter members of many other species already established in the Federation. Okay, and then finally we have got. That's really interesting. So right, Commander. Right, so finally we've got Commander Mike. You're playing Raoul, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what I've done with your sheet. Oh, there we go.
What's that?
Yeah. So basically, born in South America, and you come from again a Starfleet family with a Starfleet tradition, and you were kind of always drawn towards security. You were particularly adept at you kind of trained in martial arts. Always very fit, trained in martial arts, and kind of that kind of naturally drew you towards the security discipline. You are actually the newest member of the crew, Lexington. You've only joined since the events of the M5 war game. And so you've basically been on board, as I say, for a few months at this point. And you have definitely already established a reputation for being efficient at your job, but also well liked by your
I'm
team.
aiming to have the crew. I'm aiming to have. My security details are not cannon fodder. Repeat. They are
exactly.
not cannon fodder.
No, exactly. And your crew have come to appreciate the fact that that in the couple of kind of serious incidents that you've been involved in thus far, you have demonstrated that that you do not treat your personnel as disposable commodities to the point where on at least one occasion you've argued with Captain Moore about or at least up to a point to do with deployment of the security team. That you've made it clear that the safety of the crew, but also your crew and your team is paramount to you. So again, that's made you very popular with the security detail. Maybe not so much with some of the other senior officers, perhaps it might be said. But again, this is still early in your time, and you're still sort of feeling your way in. And your career, ironically, you spent quite a bit of time in the Merchant Marine. So you did some time with colonial operations. You spent a fair bit of time in military operations. So on probably on a Baker class destroyer, perhaps on the Klingon border, maybe.
And Chandy class is later, isn't it?
Yeah, later. But then you did have an extended tour in the Merchant Marine, which again gave you quite the interest in interesting beverages and again kind of honed your social skills to a point.
So I'm very good at stopping bar fights.
Exactly. Right. So that's kind of a bit of a snapshot of who these people are. Again, I'll try and put some more information out for you, but again. Again, different bunch of characters from what we're used to, but hopefully that's of some interest to you. Cool. Okay, so we're back on the bridge. And as we were, as before, there we go, we're still warping through space. Okay, so the Lexington is, you are approaching the Bacchus system. So the Bacchus system is way out in the periphery. So I'm just going to quickly show you a little map of this. Is again a map from Michael probably recognise this map.
A second. Oh yes.
And basically, pretty much the Bacchus system is somewhere way out over here. Where can you see I'm pinging on the map?
Yep.
And this is what will one day become the Shackleton Expanse. At this point, it is not identified as such. This is simply out in kind of dispute, sort of territory between the Klingon Empire, the Romulan Empire, and the Federation. And so you are way out in sort of uncharted territory here. So as the Lexington is approaching the Bacchus system, and as the ship drops out of warp, the ship suddenly lurches as it comes to a sudden stop. Several crew members tumble to the deck in the tried and true original series tradition, and on the main viewer you see one of the planets of the Bacchus system. Some sort of orange-coloured beam from the planet has enveloped the ship, and I'm just about to ping over to that. Just bear with it. Kevin's right. I've really gone a bit mad with all of this week. So, okay, so basically an orange beam is enveloping the ship, originating from one of the planets in the Bacchus system. The lights flicker and consoles go dark across the bridge. Whatever the beam is, it is interfering with the ship's power, controls, and other systems. Just before the main viewer goes blank, you see through the orange haze the surface of the planet. It is a little larger than the size of Earth, yet on the surface you can clearly see structures, long lines that must cover thousands of miles, connecting geometrical shapes the size of large cities, as well as other indications of artificial construction. So
yeah, but they said there was canals on Mars, so
yeah, exactly. So basically, you are on the bridge, and as in good old TOS fashion, there's like puffs of smoke coming out of consoles, and the ship is rocking. So, what would you like to do?
I'm doing everything I can to get helm control back.
Red alert, first of all.
Okay,
me being the chief, chief medical officer. Should I make an announcement and check that there's no injuries?
Absolutely, you can certainly do that. And again, Helm's going to try and restore helm control. So first of all, Captain Moore calmly initiates red alert. So you turn to the communications officer and you say red alert, and the klaxons begin to sound across the ship, and cue scenes of people with 60s hairdos and so on striding purposefully along corridors. And the ship's crew begins to gather itself back from this surprise occurrence and is beginning to regain order. Captain Moore, from your central position, you kind of look around all the positions on the bridge and you can see people swinging into action. So, so why don't we get first dice roll of the session is going to go to Sarah Jane. So Commander Reiter is going to have to try and regain some sort of helm control. So what I want you to do, if you look on your character sheet, you can see that you've got Starship Helm Operation, which is over to the far right, third column about halfway down. Correct. So this is a 55. So that's your base chance. Now I'm going to apply a 10 point, a minus 10 to that, because you are obviously, this is not a normal situation. You are fighting to regain control. So all you need to do is, if you get to the D100, go for the dice roller and roll a D100, and we're aiming for 45 or less.
D100, there we go. Did it roll? What did it roll? I can't see.
With there you go, good. You got a 40. So even with that negative modifier, so even though this is more difficult than the normal situation, Commander Reiter's experience kind of plays through here, and your hands flash across all of those big chunky buttons, and you begin to what you basically do is you manage to fight the ship and put it into at least a partially stable orbit. So on the main viewer, you will see the planet sort of comes into view. There's an orange glow surrounding your view because you're enveloped in this beam, but you managed to get the ship into a stable orbit, at least for now. So next, who do we have next? So yes, chief medical officer. So Jitan, what would you like to do? You said you wanted to make an announcement.
Basically just see if there are any injuries.
That's cool. So what you can do is you basically lean on you. As I said, you've got in the habit of sitting at basically. There's a life support on the bridge. There's a life support system station, and you've kind of inherited that as your own. And so you just lean over to the on the console. There is a communicator panel, and you just contact the sick bay, and you talk to your chief nurse, and she advises you that there's a few people reporting to sick bay, but it's all bumps and bruises at the moment. So basically where people have kind of been thrown out of bed, or if they were walking down the corridor when the beam hit and they kind of were taken off balance and hit the wall or something. But there's no
need for me to go rushing down there at full speed.
There's no need for you to go rushing down there. Again, this ship is Alex, I kind of assuming you know a bit about this, but of course I have to remember that you probably are not that familiar with the original series.
Not amazingly familiar, no.
Okay, so the Constitution class ship has a crew of 430. Okay, this ship is 23 decks high. It is about 1,000 feet long. So this ship is about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times the size of the Vigilant, which obviously is the ship that you are used to. So as the chief medical officer, you have a team of about 20 medical personnel under you. And you have like 2 or 3 junior doctors, as well as nurses, and then you have a whole bunch of like medical technicians. So the good news is you certainly don't need to go rushing down there, because you have a capable staff. And obviously, when the captain sounds red alert, that means that all personnel on the ship go rushing to their stations. So currently, all 430 people are kind of at their, where they need to be for work. So your sick bay is fully manned, and your chief nurse, she tells you that she will advise you. She'll keep you informed, but at the moment, it's just bumps and bruises. The odd concussion, but nothing serious.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine then.
Cool. So, what about Commander? What about Commander, Chief Engineer Caesar and Dorian? So, yeah. I keep forgetting what his name is, because it's the most difficult name to remember to pronounce. So
Brett.
Baroque. Baruch.
it's Verret. Yeah, Verret. So
Commander V.
Commander Verret, you're at your engineering station. So is there anything you would like to do?
I'm going to. So we've been shot at.
Basically, you've dropped out of warp in this system, and as you've entered orbit, or as you're approaching the planet, you've been struck by by this energy beam from the planet's surface.
So I'm going to use my space sciences astronautics to see if this energy beam this is either from a known source. Is it a case that we fire T?
Like a weapon.
Do we fire T beams? Do the Klingons fire X beams? Kind of thing. Is the signature on our system?
Absolutely. You can certainly do that. What I probably would say is you're probably better off. I mean, that is what have you got in go because astronautics is basically starship engineering. So it is literally ship construction. So that gives you familiarity with ship systems. So I'm going to let you roll against that. Yeah, go for that. So you need to roll 94. No, all you can tell is that you do not recognise this type of energy beam. Again, doesn't mean that it's not from a known source, but you are because it's a 94. You're certainly you say no. This is not something we're familiar with, and you can tell. I'm going to look at. Let's see. Where's my science officer gone? So, Commander T'Pren, she reports in conjunction with your report. She looks into her little hooded viewer, and she confirms that the energy beam is coming from a point on the planet's surface. It is not from a ship. This energy beam is coming from a point on the planet's surface, and she is going to make a roll against. Bear with. Going to get her to roll against D100. There we go. She is rolling against Starship sensors, so she succeeded with a 43. She basically confirms your analysis, and she says that this is not a known type of, this is not an energy weapon that you are familiar with. Okay. Now, finally, before I take my little 2-minute break for the coffee run, let's talk.
I know it's 8:30 already.
I know it is. Let's talk to our chief security officer. So, Commander Huerta, is there anything you want to do?
Get reports in from us. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you, but something's buzzing. Is that you buzzing?
He's falling down the well.
It might be coming from me if it's a dishwasher in the background.
What's that, Timmy? Mike's fallen down a well? Right. So, what do you want to do?
Reports in from my security teams to find out.
Okay. Yeah. So you speak to your security teams. So again, similarly, just to remind you, as with it is a nice captain's chair. Just to remind you, as per as I said with Alex, again, security department on a Constitution class ship is quite large.
Yes.
So, and your sort of second in command is in the security center, and he confirms that there's no sign of intruders. Basically all internal security is, security teams have been posted at all vital sections. So basically, security teams are dispatched to engineering and to the bridge and all over the ship to vital systems. But so far, there's been no report of any sign of intruders or anything like that. And also, your weapons, the weapons crews are at their stations as well.
It's a silly question, but the ship has actually gone to red alert, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Captain Moore ordered red alert first thing we did.
Okay. So basically, I'll get readiness reports in from my security teams. Do I actually control anything else, or is it just?
Well, you're basically, I guess you're basically the because obviously at this time in the way starships work, you do not fire the weapons. That's done by a helm officer.
I'm just trying to work out what my.
So no, you are chief of security. So you are responsible for ship security and the security of the crew. You do not fire weapons. You're not the tactical officer. You are the security officer. So you can fire weapons, but it's not your role.
I'm responsible for sending them down to die.
Yeah, you're responsible for the crew and the integrity of the ship and the crew on away teams and so on. But yes, your crews have all reported in and all is good. So I'm going to take a break there, guys, for a couple of minutes. I'm going to put myself on mute. So talk amongst yourselves, and then I'll be back in a minute. And then so feel free to discuss where we are and what you want to do next. And I will be right back.
Any thoughts, anyone?
Not really.
It sounds like a type of tractor beam, right? It's latched onto us. Am I right? It wasn't a pulse.
He didn't actually say what it is. If I remember rightly, it was just that we've been hit by a red beam, not that it was actually fracturing us down or causing us. I don't think he even said it was causing us damage.
Right. So okay, because I was under the impression it was sort of latched onto us rather than it just pulsed at us. But we might need confirmation on that.
From his description, I wonder whether
if it's attached to us, we'll need to break free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Short answer is we don't really know enough.
Yeah, we're either going to need to break free or we're going to need to take evasive maneuvers in case it tries to pop us again.
I mean, is it a constant hit? Is it constant? Is it actually
that's the question,
latched onto us, or is it like a weapon hit where it's just going to cause damage, then it'll fire again?
Precisely.
I'm assuming the shields are up as well. So yeah. Again, we don't. These sort of questions you don't really know.
Without metagaming, we've got very little to go on. But if we were to metagame, this is 2-3 linked adventures that tie into the campaign we're playing out. So the danger is allowing that information that we already know to filter in.
The description he gave, he said we saw cities and hexagonals. Again, metagaming.
Yes.
I wonder if that was the. I can't remember the name of them. I do apologise. The people called city belonging to the species that got sucked into the.
Was it the Tilicali?
Yeah, I wonder if it's Tilicali City. It's been meta. As I say, it's meta. It's our characters wouldn't actually know any of this shit.
No. That is the danger of
talking amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Trying not to.
I guess we'll try and hail the surface as well, right? See if we get any response.
Was the planet it came from inhabited?
Not to our knowledge, but it may well
In the
be.
description that Steve gave, it sounded like it is.
It's worth hailing, see what happens. Yeah.
If we take a step back from what's currently happening, the reason we are here is because 2 Starfleet officers killed 2 people, nicked a ship, and came here. So that so I guess the first question there is what race were those those officers? Is it a case that they were actually, I don't know, race X? Both were race X, and they are
I
known
can answer that
for.
for you, actually.
Okay, cool.
Keep. Yeah. Oh, okay. I believe the Starfleet officers are both humans.
Both humans.
So you don't know their names. Well, no, I'm sure you do know their names. It doesn't matter. That's not really important. Basically, 2 junior Starfleet crewmen. So let's say they're ensigns. And that. Oh, actually, no, I stand corrected. I have got their names. So the humans were Lieutenant Jana Fry and Ensign Camilla Chara. So they are 2 human Starfleet officers.
Both female.
Did we know
It appears so,
what
yeah.
ship they serving on, or where they were serving?
They were from Starbase 11. I'm just gonna. It's not. I don't think it's relevant, but yeah, that's a reasonable question. So they were from Starbase 11. So they basically stole one of the shuttles from Starbase 11.
Steve, can we get confirmation? The beam, has it latched onto us, or was it just a pulse?
It's latched onto you, so the ship is it's kind of this beam is hanging onto you.
Yeah.
Even though, as I say, you've managed to get the ship into somewhat of a stable orbit. However, as this beam is still causing problems. It's basically the ship keeps lurching, and obviously systems are blowing out. So although you've managed to kind of hold your position, it's likely that the ship can't survive this for
where's the beam
indefinitely, basically. From the planet's surface. I mean, you obviously can get coordinates.
If we could get below the horizon, it would lose contact.
Presumably, but that's true. You can try and do that if you wish. Yeah, that's certainly reasonable. Because you're right, it is a planetary emplacement, should we call it? A location on the planet is firing this beam at you. So yes, you're right. If you were able to basically put the mass of the planet between you, then presumably it would no longer be able to latch on.
We could always send them a couple of presents of kits of instant antimatter.
Yeah, you can do whatever you like. At this point, you can because one other thing to mention. So with red, when the captain signalled red alert, obviously the deflector shields came on. And again, although they are doing somewhat, they are mitigating the effects. They are certainly not causing the beam to lose its lock on you.
Could we scan the beam, try and work out what frequency we're on, and try and make some sort of shearing plane to cut it?
Yeah, you could certainly probably do that. So what would you like to attempt first? Because you've got a couple of things there. You want to try and get the ship to basically get out of its range by changing orbital position. I guess you could even try and break orbit. It's up to you. Either way. The point is you want to get out of the path of the beam. And the other thing you've suggested is trying to modulate the shields to
cut the beam. Yeah,
is that correct?
It just sort of like it loses traction. We managed to.
So, Captain Moore, which of those two? Which would you like to try first? Do you think?
So Captain Moore will make an announcement that the first crew member who frees us from this beam will be dining with the captain tonight.
And your dining room is really nice. If you've seen any episodes of Strange New Worlds, that dining room is very
nice.
We're
not in that timeline.
Yeah.
As we've regained some helm operation. Yeah. I think trying to maybe shake the beam loose, so either going below the horizon line might be an effort to make. But at the same time, I instruct the chief engineer that to try whatever they can to break us free of the beam.
Okay, so why
is
don't
it possible?
Yep.
If using the analogy of a tow rope.
Yep.
If you are pulling a car with a tow rope, the rope is kind of taut. But if the car behind puts its engine on and goes forward, the rope goes loose. Is it a case that what we could actually do?
So if you fly down towards the source of the beam, could you shake it loose? Maybe.
yeah, it is a case that the beam is 10 miles along, and at that 10 mile, that's where all the power is. But if we fly at it, we can actually loosen the beam enough to break free.
These are all excellent suggestions, and you can try. I'm happy for you to attempt them in whichever order you see fit.
So it's a planetary atmosphere. Is there any asteroids or like that around?
No, no. There's no moon. There's no. No, so this planet doesn't have a moon or any satellites. There's no asteroids. At least not. There will be asteroids in the system, but not within.
It's a beam
range.
of light, isn't it?
Yes,
it's a beam of light.
An energy beam. Yeah.
So what we should do is get the replicator to create lots of shards of glass,
really big mirror.
lots of shards of glass, and to put that in the front of a torpedo, fire that into the beam. When it explodes, all those shards of glass will reduce the power of the beam because a big chunk of those power will be refracted over the place.
I'm going to give you a prize there. That's a really creative. That's an excellently creative suggestion, and these are things which you can try. Again, I'm happy for you to try whatever you like. The ship is as I say.
Okay.
Gone quiet.
Have we lost you? Steve?
Use helm control to evade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, me?
Yeah.
You are still here.
Am I still here? You lost me.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did you lose me for a second? Apologies.
Yeah, I think you went for a tunnel, Steve.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I was just saying that the captain, as I remember, you'd said that the first thing to try would be to use, because you've got some helm control, was to try and evade the beam first of all.
Any
right?
other orders? I'm going to take evasive maneuvers.
Yeah, cool. So right again. So if you've got Starship Helm operation, I'm going to let you just roll your full. You could just go with the 55 because there's no, you're just trying to evade it. So you're going to try and do what you can to fight the effects. So I think what we'll do is, why don't we assume that you take on board what the chief engineer suggested? So you're going to try plot an evasive course, but what you're going to do is you're going to try like a retrograde course and kind of turn in on itself and see if you can basically trick it into losing its lock on you.
Ooh.
Okay, cool. So you have rolled. That's good. So you've succeeded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're 55. So you've got 46. So okay. So you basically swing the ship. You kind of throw the ship into a hard bank, and on the view screen, you see the kind of mass of the planet kind of zooms in to fill the screen because you've essentially pivoted on your axis like 108 degrees, and you're now heading. The ship's course is now heading down, lower towards the planet's surface, and obviously you are in orbit, so you are a distance away. But the point is, on the screen, it suddenly becomes filled by the planet, and again, you're basically flying into this orange beam, and as the ship dives lower down into the towards the atmosphere, the beam does momentarily lose its lock on you, or at least it seems to slip. However, it very quickly reestablishes itself, and so now you're basically head on into the beam with the beam now, coming at you. And as I say, you manage to slip it for a few seconds, but it very quickly reacquires you. And again, there's a restoration of the lurching and the console blowing up, with sparks flying out and all that stuff. Yes, you are able to hold position. So you realise that the beam has reacquired. So you basically hold. So you're still in orbit because again, you can be in orbit without having. You don't have to be like. It's not like in the TV show where you're kind of going from left to right around the planet. You're still in orbit even if your attitude is with the saucer section pointing down. If that makes sense. So you manage to hold your distance. So you're holding your orbit, but you've kind of adjusted position.
Beam emitter is looking right down off torpedo tubes.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Steve, can we send like an open hail to the surface?
Indeed, you can. So let's say Lieutenant Reese is the communications officer, and you signal to him and say, Lieutenant, open hailing frequency, and he has his little earpiece in, and he flicks a chunky button and says, "Hailing frequency is open, Captain." So over to you.
Okay, so yeah, it'll be something like, "This is Captain Moore of the USS Lexington. We demand an explanation as to why you have taken hostile action upon us. If we have encroached on your space without knowingly doing so, please give us a chance to explain ourselves and retreat."
Excellent.
Yeah, something along those
That's
lines.
pretty good. That's really good. I love that. Unfortunately, there is no immediate response.
Mhm.
Basically, the channel is open. You kind of you glance. You say your speech into the viewer. He's sending this on sort of all frequencies, and he kind of listens to his. Again, he's got his little his little earpiece in. He listens to his earpiece and kind of looks at you and just shakes his head, indicating that there's no response. But he puts the message on repeat, so he'll keep broadcasting the same message for now at least. So you see him operating a few controls, and he basically replays the message so that it keeps going out on all frequencies. But as of now, there's no immediate response. So I would suggest the next thing that you suggested was, I think, to get the science officer to try and do something with the shields. Was that right, Mike? You said about analysing the beam.
Scan, try and work out what frequency this.
Okay, we can do that.
The beam is operating on,
give me a second,
and then try and find a counter for it.
Yeah, no problem. So so Captain Moore, you nod to I keep forgetting what her name is.
Pren, yeah.
Pren, I think it's Pren. You nod, you nod to her, and say, see what you can determine about the nature of the beam. And so let's get her to roll. It is quite funny because I've got all these character sheets actually in paper in front of me, and all I've got is succeeding is making a mess of bits of paper floating around. Right. It's like the good old days. Okay, so here we go. Let's roll for her. So she's going to roll a D100. Oh, that's a good result. So she's used her Starship sensors. Actually, what I've done is I've averaged with sensors and astrophysics, which are the two most relevant. So she's easily succeeded with that. So she, again, she looks up from her viewer and she says, "Captain, I have determined that the beam is functioning both as a scanning beam and also a mechanism by which to disable our systems. It may be possible for me to adjust our shield frequency to refract some of the energy back down the beam. With your permission, I'll send the equations over to the chief engineer for him to initiate."
Make it so.
Okay, so she on the engineering panel, Verette, you get she sends over basically some like a string of calculations, and you input them.
Catchphrase, Captain. I like it.
Yeah,
Well,
catchphrase, nice.
just so you know, canon, she was first to say it. Just putting that there.
So Picard can suck it. Yeah,
He ripped it off.
Picard can bite me. Yeah, that's fine. Yes, absolutely fine. I'll make a note of that in the ship's log. Yeah, okay. You invented the phrase "make it so." Got it. Okay, so right.
Well,
so
my grandmother used to say that to a singer.
Oh, very good.
as in a
Classic,
singer, very good,
classic,
yeah, very good.
classic sewing machine joke there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it. That's.
Oh, I just got that. That's horrible.
Just so everyone's aware, that's the only sewing machine joke you're probably going to get tonight. So make the most of it. Okay, so chief engineer, she sends you the equations, and you kind of enter the do the business, and if one were to see the ship from outside with its ropey 60 special effects, these are not the remastered ones, obviously. These are the original model effects. The shields kind of fluctuate. And looking at the beam, if you were to see the beam from outside, you would see that there was kind of you could see a distinct change in the color of the beam, and you can almost see a pulse of energy go back down the beam, heading towards the planet's surface. And sure enough, on the ship, the effects of the beam are slightly mitigated. So the kind of rumbling and the shaking definitely eases down, and T'Pren reports to you that the damaging effect has been mitigated somewhat, and you should be able to maintain position and orbit at least for the time being. And as you are kind of attentive, so you kind of things calm slightly, and personnel come onto the bridge. So like a couple of medical people come onto the bridge to deal with it, just to check to see whether there's anybody on the bridge who needs medical attention. And a couple of engineers come up with sort of toolkits and start, they're coming up to sort of work on the panels that have popped, and your crew go into their kind of well practiced emergency procedures. Okay. Now, as you come to the realization that the situation has calmed somewhat, all of you suddenly feel a strange aura fill your body, and you are transported instantaneously off the ship.
Okay.
You all materialize on the planet's surface, or at least what you assume is the surface of Bacchus.
Okay. That solves that then, because I was going to ask the chief security officer to make a risk assessment on sending down the away team, but I guess that solves that.
That was out the window.
To say, it wasn't a transporter effect. It was one of those where you just disappear and you get a bong as everybody disappears.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good sound effect for that. Yes, you're exactly right.
I'm not doing that again.
And as you are breathing comfortably and not suffering any adverse effects, you conclude that this must be a Class M planet, which basically in Starfleet parlance means it's Earth, Earth similar conditions. One of the enormous geometrical structures visible with the naked eye from orbit now towers in front of you. It seems as if this is a pentagonal cylinder, and you estimate it must have a diameter of at least 10 kilometers, and it is so tall that you cannot see the top. It almost appears to be made from a single piece of stone, as no seams or other joints are apparent. So you have a materialized on the planet's surface, and again, the planet's surface is it's kind of almost, I'll say desert-like, but you can see these enormous, unnatural geometric structures kind of rising up into the sky. And you realize, all of you, that this piece of stone is so large, it must have, it conceivably would have been carved from something like an asteroid or a small moon, because it seems to be one piece of stone or rock or whatever it's carved from, but this is not a construction as such. It almost appears to have been carved from a single body, which would mean this is a technology that is far in excess of the Federation's capabilities.
That's no moon, Captain.
That's no moon. As your senses come back, so again, we're all sitting on the bridge doing your thing, and all of a sudden you felt yourself transported down, or I say transported, to be clear, this was not a transporter beam, as Mike quite rightly pointed out, but you have materialized on what you assume to be Bacchus. And as you're looking around, and you're all kind of understandably slightly phased and confused. And to be clear, this is the 6 of you. So this includes Lieutenant Tupren, who's the science officer. And as you kind of gather your wits and you're looking around, you can see in the distance, you can see another monolith in the distance, and that seems to be the source of the beam. You can actually see the orange beam kind of rise, shooting up into the sky from a monolith in the distance. And you estimate it's probably going to take you 90 minutes or so to walk to it. So to be clear, you have materialized on the surface only with the equipment that you had with you. So you will all have a communicator.
I was about to say, I wanted to make it clear, but I was holding my security tricorder at the time.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to give you a dice roll on that, because you didn't say you were holding a security tricorder. So I'm going to give you a 30% chance. So roll a dice, and if you have if you get under 30, I'll allow you to have a security tricorder. D100, yeah. Because like I say, you didn't say you were holding one. So
there we go, D100. There we go.
Actually, no. Stop
Thank
that.
you.
Hold that thought. Actually, no. I'm going to make it a luck roll because you've got a
cheers.
luck roll of 12. So if you can,
Oh my God.
I'm going to let you roll again. Well, no, you've got a luck roll of 12. So if you're lucky, you've got a tricorder. So roll a d100. If you get under 12, you've got a tricorder. No, you haven't. So
These
you haven't.
rolls don't like me.
Equally, I'm going to allow that Mike, as Huerta is a security officer, I'm going to say that you have a FASA 1 in your, because they're sort of standard issue for security personnel, and you'd have it in you have a little pocket in your uniform. So I'm going to say that you've got a weapon, but I'm going to assume nobody else does have. Certainly, the medical officer will only have, he won't have any real equipment with him. And again, similarly, like there's no, the engineer won't have a tricorder or a phaser. But I'm going to say you've all got communicators.
Surely I'd be able to have a tricorder as an engineer.
Well, again, I'll give you a luck roll. That's fine. I'm happy to allow anybody a luck roll to pick
What's
one
my
piece
luck?
of equipment. So your luck is going to be...
The medical officer have a medical.
It is on the top level. It's 21. So you've got a luck of 21. So if you can roll under 21 on a D100... Oh, do you know what? I'm going to give that to you. That was really close. I'm going to give that to you. So, all right, you've got an engineering tricorder. Let's say that was in your hand as you were.
The medical officer have a
working.
medical tricorder.
Anybody else want to try? Yeah, you can make a roll. Make a luck roll.
Come on, Alex.
I'll give it to you. Your luck roll or your luck score
This is Alex.
Oh, you've got blimey.
Mine.
Your luck score's 80. Yeah, Alex. Yeah, Alex. Your luck is 80.
Wow.
Yeah.
So roll a D100. If you roll under 80, then yes, you've got a medical tricorder. And in fact, I'll say you've got your medical kit with you if you want. So just roll a D100, and then let's see. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay. So let's say that you actually had your medical kit with you. So what your medical kit gives you is I'm going to look in the old source book, and I will tell you exactly what you have in your medical kit. This might be quite useful to know. So in your medical kit, you have so it's a small pouch with a fold over top, which is you can attach it with Velcro. It attaches with like Velcro to your uniform. It contains a spray dressing. It contains a Feinberger. So a Feinberger is a little scanning device. It's a little twirly scanning gizmo, which allows you to diagnose basic injuries. You've got a hypo, and you've got a small supply of drugs.
A very technical description there. The little spinny tricorder thing.
Exactly, that's exactly right. Everyone who's seen Star Trek the original series knows what I'm talking about. The little spinny,
when you say
spinny medical gizmo.
You say
Sounds
small
like a
supply of
right.
drugs. Is this because he's a hippie
does,
or
yeah.
are these medical drugs?
Yes.
Checking.
Medical drugs. So you've got sedatives. You've got some stimulants. You've got
Ketamine, MDMA.
Yeah, all the usual stuff. You've got some Monster energy drinks. The usual stuff. You've got an adrenaline shot. You've got Sterilite, which is like a sterilizing compound, and something called Triox compound. So basically, this medical kit is something that all medical officers carry on duty. So you've got it attached to your uniform. So we've gone through. Medical officer's got a medical kit. Engineer's got an engineering tricorder. Anybody else want to? So, Captain, do you want to try your luck for something, or are you happy with what you've got?
No, I don't think she'd have anything on her.
And what about helmsman, Sarah Jane?
Steering wheel?
What's that? A steering wheel.
No, it's all right.
You can have a steering wheel if you want. That might leave them in trouble up in space, though. They're going, hang on a minute, where's the steering wheel gone?
Yeah, I tell you what,
It's detachable.
I've got a data pad in hand that had some mundane report on it, and I probably just
Fair
tossed
enough.
it to the ground.
And the good news is that the data pads in the original series are these big old chunky things. They're really you could probably use it to give somebody a whack round the head with, actually, because it's literally a massive great kind of black chunky thing.
Actually,
so yeah, fine. Okay, so that's
I'm holding a cup of coffee,
where
but
we are.
It's empty because it got thrown around as we were on the ship.
No, brilliant. I love that. Okay, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Yeah, so you've got an empty cup of coffee. I love that. Brilliant. Okay, so you've all materialised on the planet, and as I say, it takes you a moment to get your, you all kind of go, what? Because 1 minute you're on the bridge of the ship, the next minute you are down on this planet. What do you want to do? You're looking around. As I say, you're on the planet's surface. You've got all of the planet's surface is dotted with these huge monoliths, for want of a better word. And as I say, in the distance, you can see what seems to be the source of the orange energy beam. But it's going to take you an hour and a half to get there.
Steve, you said not quite desert-like. Is the sun sort of beating down on us that we need to worry about that at all?
All right, excellent question. It's actually it's relatively pleasant actually. As you kind of proceed, it's like rolling. You actually come across there's like grassy little kind of what do you call them? Not quite hills, but the terrain sort of undulates. But there's actually some sparse grass around, and there is vegetation, and there's no major obstacles. So there's no massive rock formations or crevasses or anything. It's all kind of quite pleasant, gently undulating terrain. The temperature's probably 20 degrees. It's pleasant enough. And actually, if it wasn't for the situation, it would be quite a nice day. But obviously. So yeah, there certainly seems to be no immediate danger. And again, but basically, the engineering officer, because although he's got an engineering tricorder, it will still carry out some other basic functions. And he just double checks to make sure that there's no, there's no harmful radiation. And he does a quick scan, and it all seems to be, but certainly you're not going to die from the environment. Put it that way.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I suggest. I command that we head towards this other pillar that has the beam of light, and for everyone to keep their wits about them and keep a lookout.
Okay, so as I say, you've all got communicators, which are the old flip phones. The old.
Yes, can we reach the ship at all? Can we hail the ship?
You can try, yeah. So you open, you sort of flip open your communicator, but you only get static. So this is more to Lexington. Do you read? And all you're getting is so there's no communication with the ship. However, if you test communication between your own communicators, it does seem that you can communicate. Obviously, you're together, but if you call one of the other people, their communicator beeps and you can hear them through the communicator. So it appears as if at least you can communicate on the surface, but just not to the ship at this point.
A technical question then, Steve. The broadcast that we were broadcasting.
Yeah.
Are we able to pick that up?
That is a good question. Okay, so let me have a little look here. Communicator can do. Okay. Yes, I'm going to say that you tune in your you sort of fiddle with the communicator because it has it's a physical. You've got physical buttons on it, and you can sort of twizzle through the channels essentially, and you pick up very, very faint trace of that signal, so you can just about hear your own voice. This is Captain Moore of the USS Lexington. And you but very, very quiet. So there's obviously interference.
Yeah.
But if you can sort of pick it up a fragment of it. So it does suggest that the signal is at least getting through to the surface. So that would suggest that if the ship is still there because it is still broadcasting. That's a good point. Again, that there is the message is actually getting through to the surface, although no one appears to be answering it as far as you know.
Okay. I'd like to stay tuned into that just in case the ship tries to send us any other messages.
Excellent, you can do that indeed. And that's you just lock it in on the communicator, and sure enough, you can lock into that frequency. If you close the grid down, but as soon as you open the communicator, it will go straight to that channel, and you'll pick it up. So you check it occasionally. You probably don't want to listen to it, constantly, but that's absolutely fine. Also worth noting that your communicators also function as locator beacons. So if the ship is scanning for you, then there is a possibility that they'll be able to detect your position because the communicator has a range of about 16,000 miles. So it's usually used on a planet's surface. It has line of sight because obviously it can't go. It gets interfered with by the planet itself. But it can also do surface to orbit. And again, it's subject to interference and atmospheric disturbance. But its maximum range is about 16,000 miles. So as I say, it functions as a locator beacon as well. So if the ship can, get through the interference, they may very well be tracking you.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So you head off, and as I say, the walk is, if it wasn't for the situation, the walk would be relatively pleasant. It's as I say, the temperature's mild, and there is one thing you do notice is there is kind of a kind of an eerie silence. So you don't see any, you haven't seen any kind of indigenous life forms. There's no insects. You haven't heard any birds. You've seen no sign of larger, predators or creatures on your walk. And again, this is, as I say, gently rolling hills, but you certainly, on another planet with similar conditions, you might have expected to see insects possibly, or, bugs on the ground or lizards, that kind of thing, but you see nothing. And as I say, the whole thing is ominous, is almost strangely quiet. You can't hear any sound from the energy beam as well. You notice that as you get closer, you don't hear a kind of like any sort of noise from the beam. It seems to be silent, which again is quite eerie because it almost looks like you're looking at a still picture. Because as I say, there's no sound other than the sound that you're making as you're walking across the terrain. So obviously, your kind of boots are, crunching on the grass and on the ground. But other than that, there doesn't seem to be any sound at all, which is, probably a little bit off-putting. Okay, so unless there's anything else you want to do in the meantime, you walk at a gentle pace, or an easy pace, given that it's going to take you about an hour and a half to get there. The pentagonal monolith before you is at least 2 kilometers tall. So this one is smaller than the one that you kind of materialize nearby. Its base is seems to be about 300 meters on a side, and the points where the orange beam is emerging from the monolith is on the opposite side, not currently in your view. As you get closer, you see on the ground near to the base of the monolith what appears to be a large metallic case, and it appears as if the lid is open, but you can't see it without getting closer.
I will go a bit closer.
Yeah, it's one of us. You can go.
Okay.
I'm not.
Are you wearing a red shirt? Yeah.
That's right. Your helm. So
Right.
you got yellow. So you're right. You'll be okay. Hands up. Who's wearing a red shirt? That'll be Mike and Kevin in this setting, won't it? And just watch your backs.
I've taken mine off. I'm bare chested. We're good.
You got your bare blue chest.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So yeah, Commander Reiter. Then, so you approach cautiously. This and the first, basically, it certainly seems out of place because it looks like a field kit. It's a metal case. It's a case with a lid. It looks, totally recognizable for what it is. As you approach, you see that it appears to be some kind of an emergency field kit. So do you want to actually look inside it? So you've got close enough to see that there's stuff inside it. Not that you can tell. If you want, you can make a. Let's get you to make a little. Let's get you to make a little. Let's have a look and see what we could go with.
One.
Oh, 71. No, that's all right. Don't go with that. Go with your. Let's see. Go with your. Probably in. I don't know. There isn't really a skill for that, which is interesting. As far as attributes go, I'd say go with intelligence. Go with intelligence. So just roll again. So you're rolling under 64 if you can. Oh, excellent! You did it. Okay. So you take a moment to listen, and two things occur. So firstly, there is no sound coming from the case. There's no ticking. There's no sound of any kind. However, you can hear voices, or what sound like voices, coming from the other side of the monolith. So as I said, this monolith is about 300 meters. It's a pentagonal shape. And so if you imagine you're near one face of this thing, which is about 300 meters long, and you're towards the edge where it joins another side, and you can basically hear dim conversation. You can certainly hear voices. It certainly strikes you because, as I mentioned, so far the planet has been very quiet, and so there is no doubt that you can hear a conversation. But you can't see anybody. They can't see you because, again, you're round the corner of this thing. So you have time. So if you'd like, you can still look at this case before you. And I presume you'll probably tell the others.
The voices because I'm a bit closer.
Yes, because you're closest to the object. So you're closest to the monolith, which means
I'll turn around
kind of right up close.
To be quiet.
Okay.
And then I'll get a bit.
And then do you want to have a look
please.
You're gonna have a look inside the case. Okay, so as you look inside the case, what you find are some emergency supplies. So you see that there's a water bottle. There is some thermal blankets, so kind of silver, thermal blankets. There seems what looks like an emergency surgical kit, and also, worryingly, what appears to be a Klingon disruptor pistol. I don't know if Mike, have you got a minute, Mike? Could you just Google an image of the disruptor pistol? The original series disruptor, and put it on the chat, if that would be all right. The other thing you notice is that there are ration packs, but as you pull them out, you can see that they have Klingon writing on them. A very distinctive Klingon. I mean, you don't, as far as I can tell.
I can speak German.
Check your character sheet.
Close.
No, you speak German. It's definitely not German, but it is definitely Klingon. And as I say, that would fit in with the fact that it's a Klingon disruptor pistol, very distinctive looking weapon.
This way, weren't they?
Yeah, that's correct. Mike, did you manage to find an image, or shall I find one? Okay, give us a sec. It'd be helpful just to see what the thing looks like, just because it will. Bear with. I'll have a quick look as well.
Lex, do you know what a Klingon disruptor looks like? Okay.
I don't think so.
Right. There we go.
Looks like something you'd see at the dentist.
Yeah, that's the fella. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that's a Klingon disruptor pistol. Very distinctive looking weapon. So all of that stuff is in this case, and as I say, you can take it, all of it, if you wish, or none of it. It's up to you.
Well, if we haven't got weapons on us, I reckon we should take it.
Yep. One thing I would say is a disruptor pistol is a lethal weapon, so it does not have a stun setting. Actually, no. Before I say that, I'm going to just double check because again, I've got the rule book in front of me. So just
any case,
I should probably check that. I think in universe, it's assumed that the Klingon disruptor pistol is not designed with a it's not a nice weapon. It's not designed with a stun setting.
But I'd prefer to pick it up so that I've got it rather than anyone else.
Yeah, you can again, it's worth picking up because it's a weapon.
It's a weapon. The phaser is a tool. It's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't technically have a stun setting, but it does. The way weapons work in this system, they just do a number of damage. So if it has a standard shot which does damage. So in other words, it's like shooting somebody with a gun. It'll put a hole in them. It has a high power setting, and if you shoot somebody with a high power setting, it will disintegrate them. So it kind of goes from it doesn't have a kind of a phaser, as Mike says, is a tool which has stun settings and other uses. A disruptor pistol is designed to injure and to kill. So just be aware of that.
It has a stun setting if you hit someone hard enough with it.
Yeah, if you hit them over the back of the head with it, absolutely. That'll do it. But if you shoot them with it, you're likely to put a big hole in them. So just bear that in mind. But it's probably a good idea to have a weapon of some sort.
Incredibly carefully and attempt to get back to the rest of the group quietly.
Okay, cool.
This fill pack.
Okay, so
is it?
And we think this is normal, not just like some kind of computer animation. what with this finding medical packs and guns lying around like some kind of
like a computer game. Yeah,
um,
you've just leveled up.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of,
Yeah.
actually, I mean, to be
Yeah,
fair, it's kind of like that. It does seem very random. Again, you've seen nothing else on this planet apart from sort of grassland, vegetation, and then these big obelisks, these big monoliths, and then you found this case just sitting there, and it seems to have been discarded. Like I say, it was on the ground, lid was open, and certainly whoever's left it there, they haven't taken anything. Again, they might have taken something out of it, but they've left a weapon and rations and all that. So you can distribute that stuff amongst yourselves.
Before we do that, so this is either absolutely random, this somebody's just dropped this, or this is a test.
It's a fair point. It could very well be.
So if it's a test, we shouldn't take the weapon, but we should take the medical kit because that's passive. But it's like we have to decide whether this is a test. So we have been brought here, or the other guys were brought here for a specific reason. Is it a case that this is a civilization that we don't know anything about that are testing us, and whether we are warlike or
I don't agree with your analysis, Kevin. I don't think that taking the weapon shows aggression. I think, as Writer rightly said, that it prevents someone else from having it. It's a defensive move.
But it was dropped.
Taking the weapon isn't intent to use it.
Plus, if they are Klingons or a very fighty race, it shows that we aren't just wusses.
Okay, I'll mark that down as I've said that. If it turns out that I was right, this is my smug moment. If I was wrong, we won't talk about it again. Yeah. I'll just mark that down as I told you so. If it fails miserably and it didn't work, then we won't talk about it again.
Perfectly reasonable. Just I'm going to interrupt for a second. Have you guys seen that there's a Crawley Comic Con Toy Fair coming?
Is there? No.
23rd of again, I don't mean to cut in, but this has kind of just thrown me. It's at K2. It's on Sunday, the 24th of September. And it says Crawley Comic Con. Photo with the Batman's The Tumbler. Cosplay contest, card game zone, retro video game zone, buy stuff. I've just
Where's that posted?
It's on Facebook. What I'll do is I'll post it on the. I'll see if I can share it to. Give me a second.
I'm going to K2 tomorrow. I'll see if I can get a bit more information.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to share it to.
Organised by Striking Events.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, hold on a second. I'll put it on the STA group. So you have to buy tickets. Having said that, it looks like it's a tenner for admission. But I might actually go to that.
I wonder who's arranging that, because all my sort of nerdy groups, nobody's ever mentioned that.
I've never heard anything about this. It's called, as Kevin says, strikingevents.com. Oh. I've just posted it to the WhatsApp group. But yeah,
can you forward it to me?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, you're not in the group. I'll add you to the group, Alex. Are you in WhatsApp?
Yes.
I'm sure.
Do you want me to put my number in chat quick?
Just get your mum to message it to me privately, and then I'll add you in.
That's
fine. Anyway, so that's just. I thought I'd just mention that because obviously that's a bit of a news, isn't it? I didn't know about that. So there you go. That might be worth looking at. Anyway, apologies. We'll carry on. Okay, so you've got the case. You can hear voices. So right now, you report back to everybody else that you can hear voices around the other side of this. You couldn't really hear words. You just heard, you could hear people talking, but you couldn't really make out what they were saying. So, how would you like to proceed?
Obviously, I proceed by reporting this back.
Sorry, could you tell if they were female voices or?
You couldn't tell. It just seemed to be. You could just hear voices. There certainly were more than one. So there was certainly more than one. There was. Two or more people talking, but he couldn't hear clearly enough to determine language or what they were saying, but you could just hear voices.
Okay, there's 6 of us here, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I've split our team into 2, so 3 and 3, and we're going to circle round either side of this.
Yeah. Okay.
we're going to go cautiously. We will, we don't want to show ourselves. We want to get close enough, I guess, so that we can hear before we do anything.
Cool.
Can we use the communicators in a way where we could just send like a little beep rather than have to speak through it?
Yeah, can do.
Just so that it's a signal to sort of move forward, I guess, once we're in position.
Yes, that I believe Michael backed me up. That has been seen
Believe
in
so.
canon, right, Mike? With using the communicator to send like a signal rather than voice. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. So that's I'm opening it up to the group to if there's any concerns or if anyone can see a problem with that, let me know. But I believe that's what we should do.
Can't think of any reasons why that wouldn't be a problem.
So I'm assuming
Sorry,
that I'm assuming that your two groups. One group will contain Huerta, who has his phaser 1, which is the little keychain phaser thing, and then I presume the other group will go with the disruptor pistol. So you've got a weapon in each group. Is that reasonable to assume?
Yeah, and the weapon can be used as a deterrent. It doesn't have to be shot.
Of course, yeah. I'm sure
Or shot at the door or whatever, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
We've all had our Starfleet training. We know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not to do.
So you move forward in two groups, and as you move closer to the source of the sound, you can, I guess, you cautiously look around the base of this monolith, and you see there are 8 creatures standing at the base of the monolith, and they seem to be looking up at the orange beam that is coming out of the structure. So this is the beam that is shooting, is presumably hitting the Lexington. The point of origin of this beam is about 50 meters up from the ground. You can look up and you can quite clearly see where the beam's coming out. There doesn't seem to be any kind of an emitter, so it's not like it's a weapon, like a turret or anything you would recognize as a weapon emplacement. But that is where it is, and it's constant. The beam is just shooting up. Now, as you watch the beam, you do see what appears to be some sort of feedback, which is basically what the science officer, what Pren managed to do, with the shields. And so there is some, you can literally see every so often a kind of pulse of energy comes back down the beam, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on the source of the beam, other than you assume it's allowing the Lexington to maintain some sort of stability. And from this distance, you can see that all of the creatures appear to be humanoid. 2 appear to be human, and they are wearing Starfleet uniform. You can clearly see that even from a distance. 2 of them are Kuchar Klingons, and so Kuchar Klingons are, again, Alex, you have to. I will explain this. I know some of you will know what I'm talking about, but the Kuchar Klingons are basically the Klingons. So in the original TV series of Star Trek, the Klingons were basically humanoid. They were basically men with beards, and they look like blokes with makeup on and beards.
Okay.
And obviously, in the later versions of Star Trek, which you may have seen, the Klingons are the guys with the big lumpy foreheads and the and all that. So in the universe of Star Trek, the explanation for that is that there are 2 different types of Klingon. And in the FASA game, this is where it gets confusing. In the Star Trek canon universe, which is what we're going with, the reason for the difference in appearance of the Klingons is that there was a virus was introduced into the Klingon population, and it resulted in some of the Klingons losing some of their more extreme features. So their foreheads became smooth. And they're not as big and burly as the ones that you're familiar with later on. So the name for that condition is Kuchar. So these are who these guys are. They look like humans, but you recognize them as Klingons from the outfits they're wearing, and their kind of dark complexion and bushy beards and so on. Okay. One of the humanoids is a Vulcan in civilian clothing, so not wearing a uniform, but just in civilian clothing. Another looks at a glance to be Vulcan, but you can tell quickly is actually a Romulan. So they look very similar to Vulcans, but again, their clothing is very distinctive. And the final pair are what appear to be Trill. So the Trill are a species that were first introduced in Next Generation. They have little speckle. They have little.
Yeah.
But actually, that's the race that Giara Prux is, who's
Yeah.
our chief engineer on Vigilant. And they sometimes have in them a symbiote, but you can't tell from a distance. You can just tell that they're Trill because of the markings on their face. And as you are kind of observing this group, the Romulan looks round and points, causing the rest of the group to look in your direction. But strangely, they look at you briefly, so they acknowledge your presence or register your presence, but then they go back to looking up at the monolith without a second glance in your direction. So they kind of realize that you are there, but they look at you, without any real interest, and then they look back at the source of this beam, and they're just looking at it.
Mm.
No, that makes me think they're
I
worried
wasn't
about the
expecting
beam.
that. Yeah.
But they're pulling two members of different species, like some kind of weird Noah's Ark for humanoids.
You know
Are
what
they
they never
male
did?
and female? Are they male and female each?
They're a mixture.
The two male and female.
The two humans are female, as we mentioned. So you have a Lieutenant Janna Frey and Ensign Camilla Shara. They are human and they are both female.
And then the two that we came to retrieve, right?
They are essentially, they are kind of your mission.
Yep.
The Vulcan is a male. The two Trill are male and female, so there's a male and a female. And the Romulan is also a male, and the Klingons are both male as well. So you've got a female Trill, two female humans, and the rest of them are male.
Okay. We never scanned to see if there were any ships in orbit at all, did we?
You didn't, but to be fair to you, you didn't really have an opportunity to do so.
Yeah. But we didn't see it. Would we have seen other beams of light if these guys have also had their ships? Is it reasonable to assume we would have seen it?
Reasonable to assume, yes. I think it's reasonable to assume that if, because again, this beam of light is hundreds of miles long, coming from the surface of the planet, hitting a ship in orbit.
Yeah.
The ship orbits. I don't know, Mike, off the top of your head, standard orbit. Any idea? There's a diagram, isn't it? Bear with me. I know that sounds like a really nerdy thing to ask, but there is actually I know there's a diagram in the book. Yeah, it doesn't really tell you, but I mean, standard orbit is it's somewhere between 1,000 to 7,000 miles above a planet's surface. So if we split the difference, this beam is like 3,500 miles long.
Yeah.
So that's a hell of a lot of focused energy. So yes, you would definitely have seen, or you would have registered if there were beams in existence. Because again, this beam only appeared when you approached the planet.
Yeah.
So if there were other beams being shot at ships in orbit, then you would definitely have seen them.
Oh, okay.
100%.
All right.
Just as a little sideline, I'd forgotten how good, because the original Star Trek game is in 3 little books. You've got there's like a game operations manual, an officer's manual, and then you've got the technical manual, the source book. And the source book is really good. It has got loads of nice little nuggets that you can just pull out. So yeah, it's quite impressed with that. Anyway, sideline, carry on. As I say, these guys have just gone back to looking at this beam. They're not really, they know you're there. They've seen you, but they've just gone back to standing there, kind of, and they still They still seem to be talking.
Yeah.
They're kind of they seem to be conversing with each other, but they don't seem to have any urgency at all. No, and they certainly are taking no hostile action against you. The fact that you've just appeared and you're sort of, you're not necessarily pointing weapons at them, but you obviously are. Some of you are armed, but they don't seem to be bothered.
So could it be a case?
Sorry, go on, Kev.
Could it be a case of Pratchett's sweet little girl monster? Is there something else in here that is actually causing them to be nice? Is it a case that whether it's pheromones or whether it's a device that is keeping them under control? Do they look as though they are doing of their own free will, or is there no free will in what they're doing, essentially?
Yes, I mean, obviously at this point you can't really tell.
Right.
Literally, all you can tell is that they appear to be, as I say, Klingon, human, Trill, Vulcan, Romulan, and and obviously the very fact that you have this particular group together is, frankly mind blowing, because the Romulans, humans have only recently. So 2266 was the first visual encounter with a Romulan, and prior to that, there had been no interaction with the Romulans for 100 years previously. So it was only 3 years ago that humans knew that Romulans looked a bit like Vulcans. Klingons, technically at this point, I think are in a state of war. Mike, is that right? It's cold.
Yeah.
Certainly a cold war with the Federation. There are skirmishes happening along the border. Again, the fact that these, the humans, Klingons, and Romulans are standing together, having what appears to be a pleasant conversation, in and of itself is very odd. To you, there's nothing in your experience that would explain why these people would be would not be either getting away from each other or fighting.
Steve.
So could we go on?
No, go on, Kev. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, do we know the name of the? Can somebody shout out the name of one of the female officers so that we can actually get a response? See if we can get a response.
Sure.
Because we know their name.
Sure. So you call out. Who wants to do that?
Well, you can.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you call out Lieutenant Jenna Fry, and the officer. She looks at you. She sort of hears you, turns and looks at you, and then just turns back and looks back at the object. So she sort of once again acknowledges you, recognizes you, recognizes that you've called out her name, presumably.
Yeah.
But just goes back to what she's doing.
Turn to Captain. Interesting.
Incredibly. Steve, who's the most diplomatic in the group?
It's a good question.
There is negotiation diplomacy on the character.
So hang on, I can tell you. Give me a sec. Yeah, you're right. There is one of my favourite skills in FASA is negotiation diplomacy, because it's just fun to say it, isn't it? Negotiation diplomacy. I'm going to guess it is going to be. Captain Moore. You've got 36.
Okay, and then next would be.
After that, it would be Commander Reiter, I believe.
Okay, so can I gesture for myself and Commander Reiter to go forwards to the others and sort of suggest?
Actually, I stand corrected. The next best is actually Lieutenant Commander Jitan. So Alex.
Okay.
Alex has got 30.
Brilliant.
So actually, so he's because again, as we explained earlier, one thing about Jitan is he's actually quite amiable.
Yes.
He's quite good with people, and that's one of his things is that he's quite good with people. So yeah, he might
been
be
around a lot of different cultures and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. So then the two of us go forwards.
Okay.
And everyone else sort of hangs back slightly. They can come forward a little bit more, maybe so that they can hear.
Sure.
But just so that we've got a bit more of a strategic advantage, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess once we're closer, I'll just try to engage in conversation. Like, I'll ask I'll tell them that we have been, we've arrived here against our will, and any of them experiencing similar problems. Just some basic stuff to see if I get a response.
Okay, as you approach them, so they turn. As a group, they kind of they recognise you approaching, and they look at you with. They're still a little bit more interested now that you're coming closer towards them, and the two humans look at you, and the captain, and they obviously recognise your rank, captain, commander, and then they just go back to looking at things. Again, they kind of, they're not overly interested. They kind of acknowledge you. They again, it's interesting. They recognise what you are and your rank, so they know they're aware enough to recognise that you're a Starfleet captain. But again, they acknowledge you, and then they just go back to looking at the thing. As you sort of you stand there and you're kind of like, oh. As you look, a second beam suddenly erupts. So you're all, well, certainly your group are surprised by a second beam suddenly appears from the same point as the first and shoots off into the sky, but at a different angle. So it's not aiming at the Lexington. If you assume that the first beam is the Lexington, this beam goes off in a different direction, but it's exactly the same. It appears to be exactly the same energy as the one holding the Lexington.
Okay.
And the guys who are standing around by the monolith, they kind of look up at it and again go back to just watching these two beams with interest. And that's about it. They acknowledged you. The other members of the group, again, they looked around as you approach, but again, not with any suspicion or hostility, just, oh, there's some people here.
Okay. So they didn't respond to any questions I asked.
So what exactly did you ask them? Just remind me.
Let's say I said something like, can any of you explain what's going on here?
They just look up. They look at you. They said, "We are waiting." Well, the two Starfleet officers, because again, I assume you're probably addressing them as they're the two that you are more interested in. They say, "We are waiting."
Waiting for who? Or what?
We are waiting for our time. We're not sure what we are waiting for, but we will know what we are waiting for when the time comes. We know we must be here, and we are where we should be. And as she says this, the others kind of nod in agreement. They go, "Yeah, yes," and so they all seem very relaxed and very chilled, but not really giving you much information.
Okay. I think I will retreat and then beckon to everyone we all gather together.
Okay.
We've got some tricorders here, haven't we?
You have, yeah.
I suggest we get a couple of scans, if possible, of them, and then just sort of put it out to the group. Like, what do we think? What's going on? Any thoughts?
Something was able to call them from wherever they were. Not like us. We were transported. We were moved from the ship to the surface. However, these guys stole a shuttlecraft. So whatever is calling them is doing that maybe over some kind of subsonic frequency.
Yeah.
Or it's or this planet has sent out probes to call people in, but it's more likely these people, the particular humanoids in front of us, each have a trait that means that they are more attuned to hearing that call.
Okay.
It's so powerful that they've done whatever they can to get here, including kill, but they don't know what it is.
Okay, it's quite a hypothesis.
But none of us can actually feel or sense it. Otherwise, you're just saying that the two humans randomly killed two people, jumped on a ship and flew somewhere that they Googled, or that it's in Starfleet records that this planet X every 300 years gives everyone a gold nugget or something. That's all I got.
I mean, they could be sleeper agents. There's many possible reasons to why they did what they did, and we're not going to know until we bring them in.
No, but you say that. What other races? So the Tilikal has a symbiotic creature living in it. Is it a case that could it be that these are sleeper agents, but each of them has got a a thing living inside them that's actually calling them home, if that makes sense.
You can certainly scan again. You've got your tricorder, and again, although it's technically it's an engineering tricorder, you could use your tricorder.
But
is there
it's a medical.
Is there a medical one though?
So Alex has got his medical kit, which does have the good old Feinberger swirly thing, but that's more of a that basically scans for injuries. So you could use it. It's not a tricorder, but what it will do is it will scan for So if you've got a broken bone or something, it will go, oh, you've got a broken femur and all that. It's designed to assist in. It's like a diagnostic unit. It basically gives readings on heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, body temperature, all that kind of thing. So you could certainly use that. And again, the engineering tricorder, you can still use it as a tricorder. So it's not designed specifically for that purpose, but a tricorder is a tricorder. So you could certainly scan it to see whether there's any evidence of, as Kevin has suggested, some sort of, I don't know, infection or something in them that's not right, if that makes sense. So do you want to have a go? Or you can both do that. So that obviously you'll need to approach them. So for the Feinberger, for the medical scan, you have to go up to them pretty closely. But obviously you're already you've already been up close and personal, haven't you? So they don't seem to be particularly bothered by your proximity. And with the tricorder, you can do the tricorder from a distance. I think the tricorder's it's got a fairly good range. So certainly you could do the tricorder from a distance, but the Feinberger scanner you would need to go up close to them.
Are we worried at all about any type of hypnosis that we might be subjectable to over time or anything? Is anyone worried about that?
Probably not look at the beam as much as possible.
Yes. I was going to say,
So beautiful.
Stay away from the light.
Eyes on the ground, everyone.
Yeah. Mike, sorry. Thank you for posting the picture of Commander Core. That's exactly right, Alex. That's in the Discord chat. That's what an original series Klingon looks like. A swarthy Klingon, as we like to call them.
Alex?
Yeah.
Everyone's still there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, right. So who wants to go first then with doing a bit of scanning? So Alex, do you want to go and have a look?
Yeah.
Or
Sure thing, I can.
Sure. Okay, so what you do is you casual again, you walk towards them. So you can who do you want to pick to scan? So to remind you, you've got 2 humans, 2 Klingons, a Romulan, a Vulcan, and 2 Trill. So
Should we do the Romulan first?
Sure, you can do that. So as I say, the Feinberger is it was made from an old salt shaker, wasn't it, Mike? I seem to remember. Something like that. It's a little palm-sized device, and as you activate it, it sort of spins round, and it just so you kind of very actually you say to the guy, "Do you mind if I just check to make sure you're healthy?" And he looks at you, and in a very un-Romulan, he says, "Certainly." And he goes back to looking at the monitor. So he lets you just run this thing over him. So you just sort of wave this thing in his direction, and it comes back with, as you understand it, vital signs that are within normal parameters for a Romulan. So body temperature's a bit higher than a human, blood pressure's higher, respiration's a bit lower. I think body temperature's higher, but all of that fits within, because as a medical officer, you've certainly know. I think if I remember rightly, you know about Vulcans. I seem to remember he's got. So you've got a really good score in Vulcan physiology. So you've got like a medical sciences Vulcan of 26, which means you're you're an expert on Vulcan medicine, and so you also speak Vulcan, Alex. So perhaps you actually, although this is a Romulan, Again, the two languages are actually quite similar. So, but again, your knowledge of Vulcan physiology means that you have an understanding of Romulan because they're very similar.
Okay.
So you scan him, and the scan takes about 5 seconds, and yeah, it seems perfectly normal. In fact, if anything, you would say that his heart rate and his blood pressure and so on are actually maybe a little bit low. So he seems very relaxed. So he doesn't seem to be stressed. His heart rate's not elevated. He's actually very calm. And again, one might argue that that's odd, bearing in mind he's on an alien planet staring at a monolith with a giant energy beam shooting out of it. But it's like he's having a walk in the park, you know. But there certainly is nothing to suggest he's suffering from any form of infection. Now, this medical device will only give you information on those basic body features. So, Kevin, if you want to make you've got a what's your have you got tricorder? Small equipment. Yeah, you've got small equipment operations of 20. So you don't need, Kevin, you don't need to make a roll because, as I mentioned earlier, if your skill level's over 20, it means you've got like a professional. So you know how to use a tricorder. So you would only have to roll to make a tricorder in extreme circumstances, and using a tricorder is you do it every day. So you don't need to make a roll. So you pull out the tricorder scanner. And again, you just scan from a distance. So do you want to go for the Romulan, or do you want to pick somebody else?
The human, because there's less chance of being to be aggressive.
Excellent. Okay.
Or to seem aggressive.
And yeah, you can walk up. You can approach as close as you like. And again, all they do is they kind of acknowledge you. So again, they're not oblivious to you, but they're not paying any. You know, they kind of they realise that you are there, but they are not worried by the fact that you are there. So you run the tricorder, and again, you scan the tricorder. It takes about 20 seconds to run a full full tricorder scan, and yeah, essentially, again, your results match. First of all, your results match what Alex has determined. So, in other words, and again, you're not a medical officer, but you can show the results to Alex, and he confirmed, or Chitan confirms that. Yeah, the medical scan seems perfectly normal. Again, if anything, heart rate, respiration are quite low, but that suggests to you that they are just very relaxed. And again, you do a body scan, so it's like an MRI scan, I guess. And there's no sign of any infection or alien. You know, there's no like bug in there. You know, there's no like. I don't know, something in the back of their neck or whatever to suggest. So again, as far as you can tell, there is nothing untoward about this person other than their behaviour.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So again, you're standing there, and again, they're just, so you're kind of a bit of an impasse really, because they're not really doing anything. So do you want to try and, do you want to ask them anything else? I mean, again, they seem to be amenable to conversation, but they just, are not that interested in you. So I guess you could ask them about who they are.
No.
Because again, you know who the two humans. Hello?
Yeah, can people hear me?
Hello?
All right, I've just been speaking and there's been no.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you speaking before.
No, I can hear you now.
Yeah,
can hear you
Alex,
before.
take a look in Discord. That'll show you what your med kit consists of.
Yeah,
So
I saw them popping up.
Yeah, so that thing at the top is the Feinberger, and then the little bit at the top there spins around, and then that's the medical kit with the hypo spray and the bits and bobs. So you have that like in a pouch that you sort of wear on your belt or on the back of your uniform. Yeah, it's a pouch. Yep. Cool. Okay, so yeah, do you want to talk to these guys about anything else? Or are you just gonna what do you want to do next?
Maybe say to these guys, do you have any idea
did you
what
get
you're doing here?
We're waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two. Okay, so you asked them how they got here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the two. The human. I'm going to assume it's Lieutenant Fry who speaks. She says, we took a shuttle and we came here.
Where's your shuttle now?
Oh, it's somewhere over there. We landed it some distance away. We didn't want to risk damaging the structure, so we parked it over there.
And did you get hit by the beam?
No, we landed and we came here.
Huh.
And again, they go back to sort of. It's she's talking to you like she's reciting a shopping list. It's all very.
I've asked them how long.
She literally said, "We just took a shuttle."
How long have you been
We
here?
just took a shuttle. I don't remember really. We've just been here.
Are they
not long?
They're
Not
showing
long.
any signs of dehydration or starvation?
We're just waiting. Excellent question. I would say no, because again, the tricorder scan and the Feinberger would have detected it. From the timeline, obviously these people disappeared.
It wasn't that long ago.
Let's have a look. Doesn't say anything about, but basically they stole a shuttle, but it's certainly been a few days. Let's put it that way. It doesn't specify in the notes here how long, but let's say it's been a few, because again, it would have taken them a few days to get here. So it's been a few days, but no, they seem to be in good health. They seem quite happy. Again, you saw that there were rations in that Klingon pack, so it suggests that those Klingons probably bought, they probably had enough awareness to bring
enough to eat them,
survival rations with them. And obviously, well, maybe, and obviously, from your own training that, again, Starfleet shuttles have emergency rations and so on loaded, and I guess in these days they didn't have replicators. They had what they used to call material fabrication units, which are basic replicators. So it would make food and drink from kind of pre-programmed, so you would have a menu selection rather than you just being able to say to it, tea Earl Grey hot. You pick, but it's similar technology but more primitive. But even shuttlecraft have that technology, so one would assume that they would be able to, they wouldn't starve, assuming that they knew to eat, and certainly they don't seem to be suffering from dehydration or starvation. So you assume they've at least eaten and drank something since they've been here.
Okay.
Okay. So again, so you're as you're basically standing here and watching the beam again. The two beams just seem again constant. You do notice that the second beam is not showing signs of the same feedback that yours is doing. So and Karen, I'm assuming you intermittently check your communicator, and you can still hear the automated signal coming through from the Lexington, so that tells you the ship is still there.
Okay.
Again, any attempt you make to contact the ship is met with silent or static. But again, this may just be because you're in close proximity to this object, so it's hard to tell. But So I mean, what you can do is, I guess, if you want, you could take a closer look at the monolith itself, because again, these guys just seem to be sort of standing there. They're quite happy to engage with you, but they don't seem to be in any hurry to do anything. So if you like, you can take a closer look at the monolith itself.
Does it up close? Does it still seem like it's made out of a single piece of moon or asteroid?
Yeah, it's definitely definitely again seems to be kind of almost seamless rock.
We've walked round the thing, haven't we?
You've seen two sides of it. I mean, as I said, these are about 300 meters on the side
around it.
Because again, this one is smaller than the. Yeah, this one is smaller than the. This one is smaller than the one that you were near when you landed. But as I say, about 300 meters. So yeah, it's a pentagon. So 5 sides. Yeah, 1,500 meters to go around it. But yeah, I mean, you certainly can if you wish. You can do exactly that because again, these guys don't seem to be in any hurry to go anywhere. So I guess you could leave a couple of you just kind of watching them, and then a couple of you could just have a walk around the object. And if assuming you do that, I guess it takes you, I don't know, half an hour to just walk around it, and you just walk around it looking carefully. And the only as you get closer to it, you do notice that there seem to be sort of runes and markings etched into the surface of it. They almost look like circuit paths, if you like. But again, you have to be quite close to see that. But they almost look like, but it's certainly no language that you recognise. Because again, between all of you, you've got some experience with alien languages, and so there doesn't seem to be any language component of it. They seem to be functional rather than decorative, perhaps. So yes, it's as I say, that doesn't really give you any insight.
How does it feel? Does it feel?
But anyway, if you want, you can look at those. You can look at those more closely. Ah, interesting. So, okay, so when you touch it,
that's the one I was waiting for.
You get hit by a massive no. When you touch, so you touch it, and your first reaction is that it's kind of seems almost warm to the touch. So it's not. You'd expect it maybe to be cold because it seems to be rock. But it's not like hot, but it just feels a little bit odd because you'd expect it to be cold. It's like granite. If you put your hands on a piece of granite, it's cold. And it almost seems warm. It's not like it's radiating heat as such, but it just doesn't. It seems to have unusual properties. But as you touch it, a new beam appears from a section above you, and it basically almost it shoots down like a circular spotlight sized effect on the ground, and this is like a soft blue light. This is not an orange light. This is a soft blue color, and it just kind of hums there, and you see this like it's almost like a I don't know, you don't know what it is, but it's just come out of one of the runes on the side of this obelisk below where you've touched it, and it kind of projects onto the ground, and it's like just humming, and there's like a section there. So yeah, and as I said, that just sits there, and it's like humming away quietly. So interestingly, again, this thing hums because whereas you can't hear any sound from the orange beams, this just is, you can hear a very quiet humming, but it's just like seems to be projecting onto the ground. So
are there any small stones or anything like that around? Could I step back a little bit and throw one into light?
Yeah, sure. You could. Yeah, I'm sure that you could pick something off the ground. Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. You want to throw it into the beam? Okay, so you pick up a pebble from around the base of the monolith, and yeah, you just cautiously throw it into the beam. Nothing happens. It just bounces on the ground and sort of passes through the beam, but nothing happens.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to do?
Can't think of anything that jumps out.
Okay, you're watching. So your new situation is that you've got this thing scanning on the ground, and as you're kind of deciding what to do, the group of 8 start walking towards the beam. So they kind of have noted that this beam has appeared, and they kind of go, And again, very, very calmly, they just start sort of sauntering over, and they sort of look at each other, and again, they seem curious rather than, curious and interested, but they don't seem overly concerned. and one of them, the Vulcan, in the civilian clothing, he sort of looks up at the wall where the beam's coming out of, and he steps into the light. And as he steps into the light, behind where he's standing, a section of the monolith wall just disappears and forms a doorway, and you can see that there is a passageway behind it. And as you kind of register, so he walks into this beam quite casually, and again it takes a second, and then this literally a piece of the wall just disappears. There's no door, it doesn't slide up or open, it just disappears, and it presents a passageway. And as you look, you can see inside the passageway is illuminated. They're like blue energy conduits in the rock, kind of start spreading down this passageway, and it kind of illuminates the passageway leading into the structure. And as you watch this scene unfold, the other members of the other group, the people who are interested in this object, they look at each other and they start to walk towards the opening. And at the same moment, so you are kind of looking at this and you're not quite sure what to do. And as that happens, there's a flash of light, an orange flash of light, and suddenly 3 figures appear on the surface a few meters away from you, and you notice that these are 3 Klingons. Two of them are members of the Kuchar, which are the humanoid Klingons, and one is one of the more traditional knobbly-headed Klingons, and they literally appear in place and look around in kind of surprise. As you're looking at them, you can see that they bear scars, which kind of speak to the fact that they're probably veterans of many battles. And they look around in anger and confusion. One of them, kind of as he's looking around, his eyes light on your group, seeing Starfleet uniforms, and you see that his hand kind of drops to his side as if he's reaching for a weapon, but he's not carrying. He's carrying a Dak-Targ, which is the Klingon, the traditional Klingon knife, but he's not wearing a disruptor pistol. And he shouts at you angrily, "What is the meaning of this? Why do you attack our ship?" And that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. So it's about 10 o'clock, so I think that's a good time to call it for tonight. So thank you very much for your indulgence. How do you feel about the change of setting? I don't know how you feel about that, but again, kind of part of the plan was to just make things different and reinforce the fact that it's different and you're playing different characters and so on.
It is definitely a change.
Beg your pardon?
It is definitely a change.
Yes, it is indeed. Alex, if you've never watched any original series, have a word with your mum. Yeah, get to. Yeah, well, like I say, you don't have to watch all of it because third season.
Otherwise, ring Childline.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As I say, just I mean, what I would suggest is just to give yourself a bit of a flavour of it, because again, it is the setting is very different. And again, maybe stick a couple of episodes on. I think it'd be interested to hear what you think. But anyway, so that was the idea behind it. And as I say, we're gonna play out this section of the campaign so that you can experience, a slightly different pace and a slightly different feel. But it's all part of the same story. That's the thing to remember. This is the beginning of the campaign. We're playing towards the end. This is the beginning. So I wanted you to be able to experience the whole thing, and the only way to do it really was to mix it up a bit. And again, that's why I thought using the FASA rules was a good idea. And I'm pleased. I think the FASA rules are good. I don't know how you guys feel from a player's perspective. I mean, it's different. It's a different mechanic system, obviously, but I enjoyed running that, and it's good. And I had a ton of fun writing the characters up because again, it's it's one of those systems like for those of us who know Traveller, where you're kind of rolling. It's like a life path. So as you create the character, you're rolling up their history and where they've served and what they've done, and it's just quite a fun little game in itself, just rolling up characters for it. But there is quite a lot of dice rolling because it's all kind of you've got lots of skills obviously to roll up. But anyway, for what it's worth, that's FASA Star Trek RPG, and again, we will continue next time, and we will pick up on the surface of Bacchus and see where we go next. So thanks again. Anyone got anything to add before we wrap it up?
Don't think so.
Thank you.
Cool stuff. Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kolish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.